it would look very bad. But in reality, they were simply doing something to keep themselves from being killed. So in every war, there have been a lot of evil things happen. And I think that probably America has been more restrained than most nations. But in this case, we have set ourselves up as an example for other nations to follow. And we need to be doing that. That really is our responsibility worldwide. And we need to keep those standards in the minds of all of the people that represent us to the rest of the world.
Why is the beheading of an American so sensational?
Well, the beheading of Nicholas Berg was horrible. And if you've seen pictures, like I've seen at least pictures, I've not seen the video, I would not recommend people listen or see the video. I have heard the audio tape of it. It was a horrible, barbaric thing. And it tells us what we're up against. It tells us the mindset and the nature of the enemies against America. And it should have shocked people into realizing that this is not child's play. We're not over here playing chess. We're not in some sort of a gentlemanly game. That it really is a very dangerous thing. War is a time where people get killed, and it's a struggle for who is going to dominate over the other. But what has happened in this entire scenario has been a loss of pride that Americans had felt. And that doesn't affect us as much as it affects our view in the rest of the world, because in much of that world, pride or how you make a public posture is very important.
Well, some people think that the American president made a mistake by apologizing. Colin Powell has made a mistake by apologizing and going to the Middle East and frankly admitting there was a terrible deed done here, because that can be read in different ways. What's the two-edged sword in doing that sort of thing?
Well, the positive side of the way President Bush handled it, I think a lot of people have observed, is that it was obvious to the rest of the world then that we are an open society, that when our people do something that's not right, we investigate it, we make them own up for it, even though they are Americans, and so we don't cover up a lot of the evil things that other nations do. On the negative side, what we have done is simply efface ourselves in the face of other nations. And so in cases where public pride and your posturing and all of that mean a great deal, they believe they've won. Let me give you an example. In 1991, after America had really kicked these Iraqis out of Kuwait, the coalition did, we didn't go to Baghdad. And so what Saddam Hussein did was announce to his people he had won, because he was still in charge. And so the Iraqis believed for 10 years they had won that war. And in 1974, after Anwar Sadat of Egypt had attacked across the canal and gone almost all the way across the Sinai Peninsula, of course he lost 30,000 soldiers and come back.
The president of Egypt
right.
Picked a war along with Syria against the state of Israel,
right.
And they went across the Suez Canal.
David Toman, 1973. I was over there the year after that, so I remember that pretty vividly, living in Israel that year. But after the war was over, they asked Mr. President Sadat, your army is still back here in Egypt. Do you think it was worth it? He said, yes, it was, because we regained our pride. And so in that part of the world, and the way much of the world thinks, pride is very important. So what has happened as America has publicly effaced itself over this prison scandal is that we have reduced our pride in their eyes, and they believe they are now winning the conflict. And that could come home to haunt us, because that will encourage them to do even more things that they believe they could defeat us with.
Why does the United States actually care what other people think?
Well, I wish I could answer that for sure. As a nation, we have believed that our system of democracy is really the best. And we believe that we have given human rights and dignity to people that no other nation in history really has. And in fact, the United States of America is the first nation in history where the poor have been in a minority. The first nation in all time where the average person actually could make a decent living, own land, own a house, and have a good life. And so we've really believed in that, and we have exported democracy. We've taught other people to have government similar to ours, and indeed our form of government has been used by a model of many others as they've come up with parliamentary democracies or representative governments of some kind. So we want to be well thought of. We'd like to be appreciated for the fact that we have spent so much of our resources, all through the 1900s especially, trying to defeat evil and make the world a safer place.
Thanks very much, Rex. You're going to see an ad now for a great magazine that you can get absolutely free of charge by calling the 800 number. You'll see advertised, as well as going to online. Go to tomorrowonline.org and you'll be able to order the Good News magazine, the most important spiritual magazine in the world, that is absolutely free. It's non-sectarian, yet it does discern and does take a look at these major issues as well as personal issues to keep you balanced in a time in which it does seem like the world is very confused. You'll see an ad about a recent issue called After Iraq, What Next? And then we'll be right back to talk about how America now appears to be a two-hearted nation. There is a real split developing between parts of the population over the way in which we should view power, the way we should view our own exercise of personal rights, and we're going to talk about how that is actually leading to a crisis of confidence in itself.